The market on Viral Station was loud, bright, and dangerous. Marcus kept one hand on his pouch as he walked through the narrow paths between stalls. The pouch held rare spices and medicine he had traded for on the outer rim. He had been warned that thieves here were fast and silent. He believed he could handle it. Until it happened. Something small slammed into his leg. His pouch was gone. A blur of movement low to the ground shot past him and into a side alley. Marcus cursed and ran after it. The crowd didn't care. A few laughed. Others stepped aside. The thief was quick, weaving between crates and pipes. Marcus saw a small tail vanish around a corner. He turned sharply, almost slipping on the damp metal floor. The air here smelled different, stale, cold, with a faint chemical bite. The bright market lights faded behind him. Ahead, shadows grew deeper, lit only by the sickly green glow of an old power conduit. The thief glanced back. Marcus caught a glimpse, a child. Thin, dark-eyed, with skin a strange pale blue shade. His clothes were torn and it limped slightly. Still, it kept running. "Stop!" Marcus shouted, though he knew the child didn't understand his language. The alley grew narrower, forcing him to squeeze past stacked crates. He could hear the thief's ragged breathing. The sound made him push harder. This wasn't the smooth breath of a skilled pickpocket. It was strained, desperate. Finally, the child ducked behind a tall pile of containers. Marcus slowed, stepping carefully. He saw movement. The child was crouched low, hiding his pouch behind him. But then Marcus heard something else. A cough. Weak, shallow, coming from deeper in the shadows. He took one step closer, and the child suddenly spread his arms wide, blocking the way. The little alien's tail twitched nervously, and he hissed something Marcus couldn't understand. The cough came again, longer this time, followed by a whisper. Marcus shifted to see around the child. A figure lay against the wall, a woman older with the same pale blue skin. Her eyes were half closed, her breathing uneven. Even in the dim light, Marcus could see how thin she was, her bones pressing against her skin. She clutched a thin blanket around her shoulders. The child shouted something in their own language, his voice shaking. He was scared, but not of Marcus. His fear was deeper, rooted in losing her. Marcus' anger faded. He lowered his voice. "That's your mother, isn't it?" The child didn't answer. Instead, he stepped back toward her, keeping Marcus in sight. She coughed again, turning her face away as if embarrassed to be seen so weak. Marcus slowly reached into his coat. He pulled out his small translator device, letting it scan the child's voice. "You stole from me," Marcus said. His words now echoed in the alien tongue through the device. "Why?" The child's answer was short, but the meaning hit hard. "For her." The woman tried to speak, but her voice was barely a whisper. Marcus crouched, still keeping a small distance. The translator caught her words. "Please, don't tell the guards. They will take him away." Marcus glanced at the pouch. It wasn't just spices, there was medicine inside. Not much, but enough to treat minor illnesses. But she needed more than that. He could see it in her trembling hands and shallow breaths. The child's eyes darted between Marcus and his mother. In that moment, Marcus knew this wasn't just a thief. This was a son trying to save his family. He sighed, the weight of choice settling on him. He could walk away. He could take back his goods and leave them to their fate. That was the safe thing to do. But as he looked at them, cold and forgotten in the shadows of the station, something in him refused to turn away. Marcus didn't know it yet, but this was the moment his life, and theirs, would change forever. Marcus stayed crouched, the damp metal under his boots cold even through the thick soles. The child didn't move, still standing between him and the pale figure in the shadows. The air smelled of rust and decay, and somewhere deeper in the maze of alleys, a pipe dripped steadily, the sound like a slow heartbeat. He could take the pouch back with one quick move, but every part of him resisted. The boy's thin frame, his sharp breaths, the desperate way his eyes kept flicking to his mother. It made Marcus hesitate. "Let me see her," Marcus said, keeping his voice low. The translator repeated the words in the alien tongue, the mechanical echo bouncing off the alley walls. The boy shook his head. No. You leave. Guards find us, they take me away. Marcus frowned. I'm not calling guards. The boy still didn't believe him. The mother shifted, her coughing fit finally ending in a weak sigh. He doesn't trust anyone, the translator murmured in her voice. Not after what happened. What happened? Marcus asked. Her eyes opened slightly, dark and glassy. They burned our home, took the strong ones to work, left the sick to die. We hid. My son, he finds food. Sometimes, she coughed again, medicine, but I am running out of time. Marcus' fingers tightened around the pouch. He knew medicine when he saw it, and she needed far more than what he carried. The boy suddenly darted forward and grabbed the pouch again, clutching it to his chest like a lifeline. Marcus didn't stop him. You can't just give her this and think it's enough, Marcus said. She needs proper treatment. The boy's eyes hardened. Treatment costs more than I can steal. The truth hung heavy in the air. Marcus knew this part of the galaxy. The poor didn't get medicine unless they could pay, and those who couldn't were left to fade away in the shadows. The law wouldn't help her. The market wouldn't help her. Where's the nearest medical center? Marcus asked. The boy hesitated, unsure if it was a trick. Too far. Guards there. They ask for papers. We don't have papers. Marcus looked at the mother. She was trying to sit up, failing. The blanket slid off her shoulder, revealing thin skin stretched over sharp bones. Her breathing rattled. He sighed. Then we find another way. The boy's expression flickered. Confusion, hope, then suspicion again. Why? You don't know us. Marcus thought about answering but didn't. The truth was, he didn't know why yet. Maybe it was because he'd seen enough people abandoned by the system. Maybe it was because he couldn't stand the look in the boy's eyes. A look that said he was ready to fight the universe alone. Because if I walk away, I'll regret it, Marcus finally said. The mother tried to smile, but it was weak. There is a cure, she whispered. But it is not sold in the open. Only the black market. Too dangerous for us. Marcus had dealt with the black market before. Smugglers, crime syndicates, backroom deals. It wasn't a place for the innocent, but it was a place where the impossible could be found. How much does it cost? He asked. The boy lowered his head. More than you have. Marcus smirked slightly. You don't know how much I have. The boy's shoulders stiffened. I know. You're human. Humans here are broke or stupid. Marcus chuckled, though there was no humor in it. Then maybe I'm both. He stood, brushing the grime from his knees. If I go looking for this cure, where do I start? The mother hesitated. The lower decks. Old hangars turned into markets. Ask for the syndicate. Marcus had heard the name before. Not good people. Dangerous, controlling, always watching. The boy clutched the pouch tighter. You'll never get close to them. They don't trust strangers. And if they think you're lying, they'll kill you. Then I'll have to be very convincing, Marcus said. The mother coughed again, her strength fading. Please, don't risk yourself. We've survived this long. Marcus looked at the boy, then back at her. Surviving isn't the same as living. The boy's lips pressed into a thin line. For the first time, he didn't look at Marcus like a threat. Instead, there was a flicker of something else, the faintest trace of belief. Fine, the boy said. But if you go, I'm going too. Marcus blinked. Absolutely not. She's my mother. If you lie or leave her, I need to be there, the boy said firmly. Marcus stared at him for a moment. He was small, limping, clearly exhausted, and yet there was a stubborn fire in his eyes. Marcus recognized it. He had seen it in soldiers who refused to surrender, even when the war was already lost. All right, Marcus said finally, but you follow my lead. The boy nodded once, a quick, sharp motion. Marcus turned toward the alley's mouth, adjusting his coat. First, we need information. Then we find the syndicate. Then we get that cure. Behind him, the boy glanced at his mother, whispered something in their own language and followed. In the shadows, the woman watched them go, a faint hope in her eyes, the kind of hope that was almost too fragile to exist. The lower decks of Viral Station were a different world. Gone were the bright lights and polished stalls of the upper market. Down here, the air was thick with oil fumes and damp metal, and every shadow seemed to have eyes. Marcus led the way, his steps steady, though his hand stayed close to the blaster at his hip. The boy followed, keeping to the walls, his pouch still clutched tightly. "Stay close," Marcus murmured. The boy grunted in reply, eyes darting to every movement. They passed broken doors, flickering signs, and figures huddled against the walls, watching with quiet suspicion. Somewhere far off, a machine groaned, metal grinding on metal. "You know who to ask for?" Marcus asked quietly. The boy hesitated. "The syndicate. But you don't ask their name too loudly." Marcus nodded. "I'll handle the talking." They entered a narrow corridor lit only by strips of failing neon. At the end, a makeshift market had been set up. Tables covered in unmarked crates, sellers with mechanical implants, buyers keeping their heads low. Deals here were made with whispers and handshakes, no questions asked. Marcus scanned the crowd. He recognized some of the signs, subtle gestures, tattoos, certain colors that marked syndicate connections. A woman with a steel jaw caught his eye. She was leaning against a crate of sealed containers, arms crossed, watching him the way a predator watches prey. Marcus approached. "I'm looking for something rare." Her metallic jaw clicked as she spoke. "Rare costs extra, and rare gets you noticed." He kept his tone calm. "I'm fine with being noticed, as long as I get what I need." Her eyes narrowed. "What do you need?" Marcus glanced at the boy, then back at her. "For her kind, a cure for the lung rot." The woman's expression didn't change, but Marcus caught the slight shift in her stance. A tiny sign she knew exactly what he meant. "That's not for sale," she said. "At least not to you." Marcus took a slow breath. "I can pay." She laughed, the sound metallic and cold. "Not in credits, you can't. The syndicate doesn't care about your money. They care about loyalty." The boy frowned. "Loyalty?" The woman's gaze sharpened. "A job. You do something for them, they give you something in return. Fail and you don't walk away." Marcus had expected as much. "What kind of job?" She leaned in, her breath smelling faintly of burnt oil. "There's a shipment. Someone else thinks they can sell medicine without syndicate approval. You intercept it, you bring it here, and maybe I'll let you speak to someone who can give you what you want." Marcus didn't like the sound of it. Stealing from independent traders meant making enemies. But the boy's mother didn't have time for a better option. "Where's the shipment?" Marcus asked. The woman smiled, not kindly. "Dock 47. Midnight. Don't be late." Before Marcus could respond, she stepped back into the shadows, vanishing into the crowd. The boy tugged on Marcus's sleeve. "We can't trust her." "We can't trust anyone here," Marcus said. "But we don't have a choice." They left the market, heading for a quieter corner of the lower decks. Marcus stopped beside a rusted maintenance hatch, checking it for surveillance devices before speaking again. "You're staying here when I go to Dock 47, Marcus said firmly. The boy shook his head. "No, this isn't a negotiation. She's my mother. I'm not hiding while you risk your life for her," the boy said, his voice steady. Marcus stared at him. There was no fear there, only determination. He finally sighed. "Fine, but you follow every instruction I give you. No heroics." The boy nodded once. They had hours before midnight, so Marcus decided to gather more information. He visited a few old contacts on the lower decks, smugglers, debt collectors, and one former syndicate runner who owed him a favor. What he learned didn't ease his mind. The syndicate didn't just control the cure, they controlled all medicine in the lower decks. They kept the supply scarce to keep people desperate. This job was a test. If Marcus succeeded, they might let him buy the cure. If he failed, they'd make an example out of him. By the time they made it back toward the docking levels, the boy was silent. Marcus could tell the weight of the situation was settling on him. "You don't have to come," Marcus said again, softer this time. The boy looked up at him. If I stay behind, I'll just sit and think about you dying. I'd rather see it myself. Marcus smirked faintly. You're a stubborn little thing, you know that? The boy didn't smile. Midnight was closing in. Dock 47 was on the edge of the station's industrial zone, far from the main trade routes. Few lights worked here, and the hum of the station's engines was louder. They found cover behind a stack of shipping containers. The boy crouched low, his eyes fixed on the dark stretch of metal where the shipment would arrive. Marcus checked his blaster, his mind already running through possible scenarios. This is going to get dangerous, he warned. The boy's eyes didn't waver. It's already dangerous. Somewhere in the shadows ahead, movement stirred. The shipment was coming in. And Marcus knew, whatever happened next would set the tone for the rest of their fight to save her.
The hum of the station's engines was a low, constant growl in the walls of Dock 47. The air was cold here, heavy with the smell of fuel and old metal. Marcus kept low behind a stack of containers. The boy crouched beside him. A faint light flickered down the docking tunnel. Footsteps followed, steady, deliberate. Marcus leaned just enough to see. A small cargo shuttle rolled into place, its hatch lowering with a hiss. 3 figures stepped out, all wearing gray work suits. They moved quickly, unloading crates marked with faded medical symbols. That's the shipment, Marcus whispered. The boy's eyes locked on the crates. That's medicine. All of it. Marcus nodded. And if we take it, the syndicate will know we can do a job for them. The boy frowned. Or they'll kill us for touching their business. Marcus didn't answer. He was already calculating. There were only 3 people unloading. If he moved fast, he could stun them and get the crates into hiding before the syndicate's enforcers arrived to collect. He waited until one of the workers turned his back. Then Marcus moved. He came in silent, blaster drawn, the boy keeping behind him. Put your hands where I can see them. 2 of the workers froze. The third reached for something at his belt. Marcus fired a stun shot, dropping him instantly. Now, Marcus said, you're going to walk away, and you're going to forget you saw me. The workers hesitated, then slowly backed toward their shuttle. One glanced at the boy, his expression unreadable, before they climbed aboard and sealed the hatch. Marcus holstered his blaster and pried open one of the crates. Vials of medicine glinted under the dim dock lights. It was the real thing. Enough to treat dozens of people. Help me move them, Marcus said. They had just lifted the second crate when a voice echoed from the shadows. Not bad for a human. Marcus spun, blaster raised. From between 2 containers, 5 figures stepped forward. Syndicate enforcers. Their leader was a tall, scarred alien with sharp, black eyes and a coat lined with weapons. The boy froze. They followed us. The leader smirked. We didn't follow you. We were waiting to see if you'd do the job without dying. Looks like you passed. Marcus didn't lower his blaster. And now what? Now, the leader said, you bring those crates to the syndicate's den. The boss wants to see you. The boy's tail twitched nervously. We don't have a choice, do we? Marcus gave him a slight nod. No choice. They followed the enforcers through a maze of steel corridors, deeper into the underbelly of Viral Station. Lights grew dimmer. The air turned stale. Every turn seemed to take them further from anywhere safe. Finally, they stepped into a massive chamber carved out of the station's old hangar. Dozens of people were there. Some armed, some sick, all under the watchful eyes of syndicate guards. At the far end, seated on a throne-like chair made from scrap metal, was the syndicate boss. She was tall, elegant, and terrifyingly calm, her skin a shimmering silver that reflected the flicker of old lights. The leader of the enforcers stepped forward. Boss, this is the human. Did the job. Took the shipment without getting himself spaced. The boss's eyes settled on Marcus, then drifted to the boy. And you brought a child. Interesting. Marcus spoke evenly. The job's done. I want the cure. The boss leaned forward, her silver fingers tapping the armrest. Straight to business. I like that. But the cure you want is valuable. More valuable than this shipment. I'll pay. She smiled faintly. Money is easy. Loyalty is harder. I want to know if you're willing to be useful again. The boy stepped forward before Marcus could answer. We don't work for you. We just need the cure. The room grew quiet. Some of the guards shifted, hands on weapons. The boss's smile didn't fade. Brave. Or stupid. I can't decide. Marcus glanced at the boy, then back to her. What do you want from me? There's someone, the boss said. A supplier who thinks he can cheat me. He's hiding in the upper docks. You bring him to me, alive, and the cure is yours. Marcus's jaw tightened. Another job. Another delay. Every hour wasted was another hour. The boy's mother grew weaker. And if I refuse? Marcus asked. The boss leaned back. Then your little friend here watches his mother die. The boy's fists clenched. Marcus knew they were trapped. He exhaled slowly. Fine. Tell me where to find him. The boss's silver eyes glinted. Good. Then we understand each other. The boy didn't speak, but Marcus could feel his anger like heat beside him. As they left the syndicate's den, the boy finally whispered, How many jobs before they let her go? Marcus didn't have an answer. But he knew one thing. Sooner or later, he'd have to turn the game against them.
The upper docks felt almost peaceful compared to the syndicate's den. Clean floors, steady lighting, and the hum of legitimate trade. But Marcus knew better. Peace here was a mask, and behind it, danger waited. The boy walked beside him, hood pulled low to hide his face. What if this supplier isn't guilty? He asked quietly. Marcus didn't look at him. Doesn't matter. The syndicate says he is, then he is, at least in their eyes. But if we do this, we get the cure. The boy insisted, almost like he needed to believe it. Marcus didn't respond. He wasn't so sure anymore. They found the supplier in a cargo bay, hunched over a datapad. He was older, with dull green skin and cybernetic eyes. Marcus approached slowly, blaster at his side. You're coming with me, Marcus said. The supplier didn't flinch. Let me guess, the syndicate sent you, and they promised you something in return. Marcus narrowed his eyes. You know how this works. Stand up. The supplier's gaze flicked to the boy. I know exactly how this works. They send someone desperate to do their dirty work. Then they kill him when he's no longer useful. The boy frowned. You're saying they'll betray us? The supplier gave a humorless laugh. Kid, they already have. The cure? They have it. They're just stringing you along until you're too deep to climb out. Marcus tightened his grip on the blaster. That's enough. Move. To his surprise, the supplier stood without resistance. Fine. But remember my words. They walked him back toward the lower decks, the boy keeping a wary eye on the shadows. Every step closer to the syndicate's den felt heavier. When they arrived, the boss was waiting, silver skin gleaming under the dim lights, eyes cold and sharp. Well done, she said, motioning for her guards to take the supplier. Efficient. Marcus crossed his arms. The cure. Now. Her smile was slow, deliberate. You've earned my respect, human. But the cure? That's a big favor. I think one more job. No. Marcus cut in, his voice like steel. The room went still. Guards shifted. The boy stepped closer to Marcus. You promised, Marcus said, every word controlled. The boss's eyes glinted. I promised nothing. I offered a deal. And deals change. Marcus's hand twitched toward his blaster. But before he could move, two guards grabbed the boy, pinning his arms. The boy shouted, kicking against them. Let go. Marcus's heart slammed in his chest. He's not part of this. The boss's smile turned colder. He is now. Insurance. You want him back. You keep working for me. Marcus's mind raced. If he drew now, they'd kill the boy before he could fire. If he agreed, he'd be a syndicate tool forever. The supplier, now restrained in the corner, spoke up. Told you. This is what they do. The boss didn't even glance at him. Marcus, you're good at surviving. But survival is all you'll have if you keep playing this game the wrong way. Marcus forced himself to relax his stance, masking the fury boiling inside. Fine, I'll do your jobs. But if he's hurt, you'll what? The boss interrupted, almost amused. Don't make threats you can't keep. The guards began dragging the boy toward a side door. His eyes met Marcus's, wide, angry, and scared. Marcus gave the smallest nod, a silent promise. As the boy disappeared through the door, Marcus felt the decision settle inside him like cold iron. He couldn't wait for the syndicate to keep its word. They never would. He would have to take the cure, and he would have to do it fast. The boss was speaking again, assigning him another job, but Marcus barely heard her. Every word was drowned out by the pounding in his ears and the single thought repeating in his head. They took the boy. They think I'm still playing by their rules. They're wrong. Marcus left the syndicate's den without a word, keeping his head low. The boss thought she had him on a leash, but every step away from her throne made his resolve sharper. He wasn't going to run another errand. He wasn't going to wait for permission. He was going to take the cure and the boy, tonight. The lower decks were quieter now, the air thick with the smell of coolant and damp metal. Marcus moved fast, slipping into service corridors he'd mapped in his head over the past days. The syndicate controlled the hangar, the markets, and most of the med stockpiles, but they couldn't watch every shadow. He made his first stop at a small repair stall run by an old contact, Laro. The grizzled mechanic didn't look up from his work when Marcus entered. "You look like trouble," Laro said. "Need a distraction," Marcus replied. "Something loud. Something that makes the syndicate pull their guards." Laro smirked without looking up. "And you'll owe me? I'll owe you big." The mechanic grunted, then pulled a small device from under the counter. A thermal flare rigged to trigger station alarms. "You've got 5 minutes once this goes off. No more." Marcus took it, slipping it into his coat. "I won't need more." From there, he moved toward the syndicate storage wing, the place he'd only been allowed to see from a distance. Inside were racks of crates, some holding weapons, others holding things even more valuable. Somewhere in there was the cure. He reached the maintenance hatch that led into the wing's ventilation crawlspace. Climbing inside, he slid through the cramped duct, the metal groaning under his weight. Below, he could see guards pacing between crates, rifles slung casually but eyes alert. He planted the thermal flare against the duct wall, set the timer for 90 seconds, and kept crawling until he reached a grate above the far corner of the storage wing. When the flare ignited, the effect was instant. A roar of heat, a blinding light, and the wail of alarms echoing through the station. Guards shouted into comms, sprinting toward the source. The room emptied fast. Marcus kicked the grate loose and dropped silently onto the floor. He moved between the rows of crates, scanning the faded markings until he found a stack marked with the med symbol. One crate after another, vaccines, basic antibiotics, then finally, a sealed container with the exact cure the boy's mother needed. Marcus pried it open just enough to confirm the label. He was about to lift it when a voice cut through the noise. "Thought you'd try something like this." Marcus turned. The syndicate's enforcer leader, the scarred alien from Dock 47, was standing in the doorway, blaster leveled at his chest. Marcus stayed still. "I'm taking the cure." "You're not taking anything," the enforcer said. "The boss wants you alive." But she didn't say unharmed. A blaster shot rang out, but it wasn't Marcus who fired. The enforcer jerked, stunned, and dropped to the ground. Behind him stood the boy, holding a small shock pistol in trembling hands. "I followed you," the boy said breathlessly. Marcus grabbed the crate. "Good timing. Let's go." They slipped back into the vent and crawled until they were far from the storage wing. Below, alarms still blared, and syndicate guards scrambled without clear orders. Marcus dropped from the vent into a side corridor. "Your mother's still where we left her?" The boy nodded. "Yes, but we have to be fast. They'll be looking for us." They ran through the twisting lower-deck alleys until they reached the hidden corner where she lay. Her eyes opened as they approached, weak, but still holding on to that fragile thread of hope. Marcus knelt, opening the crate. Got it. This is the real thing. The boy's hands shook as he helped administer the first dose. Color began to return to her face almost immediately, though her breathing was still shallow. Marcus stood guard at the alley's entrance, blaster ready. He could hear shouts in the distance. The syndicate was spreading their search. Can she move? Marcus asked. The boy nodded. Not far, but enough. Marcus helped her to her feet, her arm over his shoulder. Together, they slipped deeper into the maze of maintenance tunnels, heading for a disused docking bay Laro had told him about. By the time they reached it, the station alarms had shifted, now searching for an intruder in the lower decks. Marcus sealed the hatch behind them, and the hum of an old shuttle filled the air. They weren't safe yet, but they had the cure, the boy, and his mother. For Marcus, that was enough reason to fight his way out if it came to it. The syndicate had taken everything they could from him. Now it was time to take something back. Permanently, the old shuttle rattled as Marcus eased it away from the hidden docking bay. Rust flaked from the controls, and the engines coughed like they hadn't been started in years, but the readouts were green enough to keep moving. The boy sat in the co-pilot seat, watching the station shrink in the viewport. His mother was in the back, resting against a bulkhead, the small medical injector still in her hand. She looked better already, the gray in her skin fading, her breaths deeper. She'll live, Marcus said quietly. The boy didn't take his eyes off the stars. They'll come after us. Marcus smirked faintly. Let them try. For a long time, the only sound was the hum of the engines. Marcus kept his course toward a quiet trade route he knew, one with no syndicate patrols. After a while, the mother stirred. Marcus, I never thanked you. You don't have to, he said. I do, she insisted, her voice still weak but steady. You risked your life for strangers. No one does that here. Marcus glanced back at her. Someone once did it for me. Her eyes softened. Your father. He hesitated. Yeah. He saved a family during a raid when I was a kid. Never asked for anything in return. I didn't understand it then. I do now. She was silent for a moment, then reached into the thin blanket around her shoulders. From inside, she pulled a small, worn pendant, a piece of metal shaped like an unfamiliar star. She held it out to him. This belonged to the human who saved me many years ago, she said. I never knew his name, but he looked like you. Marcus took it, turning it over in his palm. The engraving was faint, but the style was unmistakable. His father's work. The boy leaned forward. That means your father saved my mother? Marcus nodded slowly. Looks like I was just finishing what he started. The boy's gaze lingered on him, a mixture of gratitude and something heavier, the weight of trust. The mother's voice grew softer. If you hadn't come when you did, I wouldn't be here. And my son. She trailed off, her eyes wet. Marcus tightened his grip on the controls. You're not out of danger yet. The syndicate doesn't forgive. We'll need to disappear. I know a place, the boy said suddenly. A mining colony 2 systems over. Small, hidden. They don't ask questions if you can work. Marcus nodded. Then that's where we're going. They traveled in silence for hours, the glow of distant stars casting faint light across the cabin. Every so often, Marcus checked the sensors, scanning for syndicate ships. When the colony finally came into view, a cluster of domes on a dusty red-brown moon, Marcus felt a strange sense of relief. The landing was rough, the shuttle's landing gear groaning under the strain, but they made it. The colony's outer airlock opened to reveal a few curious faces, none of them armed, none of them wearing the look of syndicate control. As they stepped onto solid ground, the boy turned to Marcus. You're leaving, aren't you? Marcus studied him for a moment. This isn't my place, but it's safe for you. And your mother. The boy's jaw tightened. I could come with you. Help you. Marcus almost smiled. You already did. But you've got someone here who needs you more than I do. The mother stepped forward, resting a hand on her son's shoulder. He's right. She looked at Marcus. We owe you our lives. That's not something we can repay. Marcus shook his head. You just did by surviving. They stood in silence for a moment. Then the boy reached into his pouch and pulled out the very same pouch he had stolen from Marcus in the market. He held it out. It's yours, the boy said. Always was. Marcus took it, feeling the weight in his hand. Inside were the same goods he'd been chasing days ago, now almost meaningless compared to what they had gone through. Keep it, Marcus said, pushing it back toward him. Call it a down payment for your future. The boy's eyes glistened, but he nodded. Marcus stepped back toward the shuttle. Stay off the syndicate's radar. And if they ever find you, the boy finished the sentence for him. We'll be ready. The engines roared to life, kicking up red dust as the shuttle lifted off. Marcus kept his eyes forward, the pendant warm in his hand. Somewhere out there, his father's memory had just come full circle. And somewhere behind him, in a small, hidden colony, a boy and his mother were alive, because he hadn't walked away,